Like many things in life, the road to leadership is winding. Just like these winding roads you see behind me, they can be incredibly fun to drive along, especially when you have a new electric car. And they can take us to wild and unexpected locations. They can also be obscured by darkness and hide our path forward. Winding roads are absolutely a metaphor for the journey that this SELP cohort has been on for the last almost 2 years. It is my pleasure to tell you about us on that journey. And what a journey this program has been. One from exhaustion to enlightenment. Starting from our first workshop, we could all tell that this was going to be a marathon. I can tell you I was ready to sleep for a few days after that first workshop. But even in one of our first gatherings, we could all tell that there were hints of this cohort already being connected. As we handed off our introductions from one member to the next, without a hitch. From that very beginning, this cohort was determined not to let any circumstance detract from our experience, and we persevered. I don't think a coincidence as a cohort with presentations led by one of our SELP members, along with friends from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We watched the Perseverance rover land on Mars as it happened together. A powerful symbol that it takes a strong team to start and complete a long, tough journey. With each workshop, we became more comfortable with each other, providing honest and caring feedback on how we can improve as leaders. I personally had members of the cohort reach out to me when I was having a tough time navigating the program or my detail assignment. I know I'm not alone in receiving that type of support. The workshops brought us new challenges, views of the incredible capabilities of the NASA centers across this country, and unexpectedly powerful reminders from the Apollo, Columbia, Challenger, Lessons Learned program of why we must all remain vigilant in every bit of work that we do at this agency. During this long journey, the cohort benchmarked some accomplished and inspiring leaders from the commercial sector, other NASA centers, and the United States military. The words of Rear Admiral Shoshana Chatfield ring the loudest to me about this cohort and what all of us at NASA should remember. She said, "NASA represents the hopes and dreams of humanity. We inspire the American people. And working at NASA is a calling, and a calling card. SELP has equipped us with the tools to lead that inspiring work, a model that guides us in every phase of a program's life cycle, from startup to ending work. Tools to have important and crucial conversations, and to better listen to each other. Tools and advice from our program advocates to listen and look for the gifts in all situations. We did a ton of growth in this program, and we will continue this growth by putting these tools to work. As one of our cohort members put it, wow, every single person in this cohort changed, and I'll add, for the better. High praise for this program and the people who execute it. Finally, I'd like to close with some words from our fellow cohort members. This is how we feel about each other and about the group. Caring, honest, supportive, adaptive, resilient, family, growing together, enlightened, and smooth like butter. Shout out to all the BTS fans. I couldn't have described this any better. While some of us are meeting for the first time this week, our deep connections will continue long after this graduation ceremony. So that's us, exhausted enlightened, and blessed to know each other. Yes, life will treat us all to winding roads, some with darkness obscuring our path ahead. Each of us in this cohort now have 14 other powerful leaders and friends to lean on, to guide each other along the path, and to lead in the most wild and unexpected locations that these roads will take us, in life, in the universe, and together. Thank you.
My name is Evan Anzalone, and I stand here to pronounce and exclaim my belief in the value and need of research and technology development for space exploration. I believe it is foundational to us as a human species and drives all the way back to our first steps we've made on this continent and across the world as gatherers, hunters, wanderers. I believe it extends to things that we've done, trips we've taken, hikes we've taken, things we've learned. I have a great memory when I was in undergraduate school, reading my E&M textbook late into the night, thinking about all the equations in that book, all the principles, thinking where this lead, what can we do with this, what is the next step? And I think this makes us better. This journey really drives us and brings the best in all of us. One example of this personally is when I was in graduate school. I was in the middle of my qualifying exams. I had two chances. The first chance, I didn't go so hot. So I was faced with a choice. I could leave. I had a job, I had a life. I could have found happiness and had a life and been good. But I didn't choose that. I chose a harder path, the one that I knew could break me if I didn't make it through that goal. I would not know where I stood or what I meant by that. But I made that choice, I passed, and that has led to me standing here before you today. It's made me a better person, a better engineer, helped me learn more about myself in that process. And I think this process helps us learning this growth is what drives us to be better people and drives us to make advances towards this. I think NASA is a preeminent place for this type of work. We are the premier organization for this. NASA is the redwood in the forest, the tall giant tree in the center of the other trees. We develop our technology and research goals the same way this tree has seedlings and sides that are already germinated. When it's stressed, these are released down to the ground around it, and other trees grow up to make this really complex, beautiful ecosystem that shares resources dependent on each other, and together they form this complex biology, this complex system that can lead to unimaginable capabilities, research, and new ways of doing things. We continue to strive to learn more, to understand, to discover, to live, to expand our presence to the galaxy, and I think this really can bring out the best in all of us. And I am a product and a believer and a tool of this vision. We have opportunities to go anywhere with this. And I want to take this chance to thank our leadership, thank our people who make those hard decisions every day. Under constrained budgets, politics, and everything else going on, you are the pilots of this ship. And we stand before you as capable, ready leaders to work beside you and to make these goals reality. Let's work together to do unimaginable things, make it possible. Because together we can bring out the best in mankind and inspire the next generation to continue this flame towards being an interplanetary race. So I believe this makes us the capability to be better in office. For fortune favors the bold. And through this exploration outwards, I believe we also will gain better value inwards and a better respect and love for this planet that we have left behind. Thank you very much.
I want to start out by taking you on a trip. Take you back to November 2017 in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. It was a really cold morning. Excitement was high. We were there for a parachute test. And we watched as the helicopter lifted the test article off the ground, took it to altitude. And a few minutes later, it dropped. Everything was going well for a while. And then we noticed something went wrong. And our collective excitement quickly turned into a collective gasp. As we sat there and watched the test article plummet into the ground at about 150 miles per hour. About an hour later, we were all called over to be able to look at the wreckage, ensured that it was safe. I looked down in that hole, and I remember two things. One, I cannot believe that this thing actually plummeted and burrowed itself 30 feet into the ground. And second, I could not even imagine the ramifications if a failure like that ever occurred and there was a crew on board. It was like a bit flip with me in that moment. I swore on that moment that never on my watch would we have a parachute failure with a crew on board. And so began an exhaustive 2.5-year effort to do a significant redesign of the parachutes and a lot of testing, and a significant redesign of the parachutes and yet more testing. And while at the end we were exhausted, it was so worth it, because in August 2020, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley landed on the SpaceX Demo 2 mission and restored the United States capability to launch our own astronauts off US soil for the first time in a decade. And thank goodness we have that capability today. Thank you. I've worked over 15 years at Johnson Space Center in the human spaceflight arena, and I've also worked at 3 other NASA centers. And I have seen something in common no matter where I'm at. NASA is always walking this tightrope and balancing on one side technical risk with cost and schedule pressures on the other side. It's important to get this balance right, but we always have to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball when it comes to technical excellence and rigor, because the safety of our crew and the success of our missions depends on it. In addition, we oftentimes seem to shoulder the burden of the technical rigor. And we can't really duck it, right? Because technical leadership is at the core of our leadership ethos within this agency. So therefore, I ask you to join me in finding innovative and creative ways to preserve and focus on our culture of technical excellence in the face of consistent competition that comes from schedule pressure and budget constraints. Thank you.
When I was a little girl, my mom read me a book, Girls Can Do Anything, and I believed I could do or be anything. When I grew up and went to college, I faced a different reality, where women aren't always encouraged to enter every field equally. One day I met Dr. Noonan, who was on my dad's PhD committee, and he invited me to the lab to see it, and then eventually asked if I wanted to get a master's degree there with him as my advisor. And that began a lifelong love affair with new technology and innovation that has real-world benefits. At the lab, I solved problems with transducer fibrillation. These transducers were used for underwater sonar and drug delivery, as shown in the slides behind me from Dr. Noonan. After I graduated, I was excited by the opportunity to work at Kennedy Space Center. I believed I would be working on new and innovative hardware and solving problems with it. Instead, I found out I was approving paperwork for a 20-plus-year-old space shuttle. Determined as a young engineer, I sought out opportunities to solve problems, create hardware and innovative tools that ensured the safety and the reliability of the space shuttle and made sure that I extended our aging spacecraft. I also solved these problems and was recognized as an innovator and increased the safety and functionality of the space shuttle. I am very proud of that work. Today, I provide insights and suggestions to a contractor about how they may improve their processes, innovate their hardware, and improve their operations. If I was a younger Susan, I think I would take the same path that I see a lot of my interns take. When offered an opportunity at KSC, they go elsewhere. We are losing some of our best and brightest innovators to contractors and universities because they are now seen as the innovators and problem solvers. I want to have a tangible and meaningful impact on spacecraft hardware that benefits humanity. I challenge all of us at NASA to be the leaders of innovation and pursue work that solves problems that are too expensive and complicated for industry to solve. I want us to be the masters of innovation and continue to be the masters of innovation, providing future engineers opportunities to work on real-world problems and solve them. It's the only way to attract and retain talented engineers and remain the leaders of innovation for the nation and the world. Thank you.
As an ambitious freshman, a mentor of mine challenged me to develop and apply to the microgravity program to do microgravity experiments on the KC-135. So I worked hard to generate a proposal, generate ideas, write the proposal, and apply. At the time of the application, when it was ready to be turned in, I had not formed the team. But eventually I got a 4-member team together and we applied and we got accepted. And that was really exciting. But due to some unfortunate events, I could no longer be on the team. And that also led us to not fly the experiment. What you notice in this whole story I told is I said a lot of I, as opposed to building a team with buy-in so that we could still have the experiment go forward and learn something interesting in microgravity research. So from that moment forward, I vowed I would never do that again. Never go it alone. Because when it comes to making advancements and doing hard research in technology, it takes a team. It takes multiple people. So it is my core belief that major technological advancements are not achieved by individuals, but the collective power of a team. It takes 1,000 points of light. As part of the NASA family, my vision for it is not about the future, but it is now. It is to see each of our teammates for the light they bring to the NASA mission and bring this together to do great things at NASA. My hope is that you too can see the light in each person and each person on your team and bring them together to harness their collective power and be a shining beacon for NASA and the United States. Over the last 9 months, I have observed my core belief in action when I was detailed to the Orion European Service Module Project Integration Office as an associate program lead engineer. My greatest joy was to bring the subject matter experts, my teammates, and other partners together to establish international consensus, resolve hard technical problems, and really drive technical issues to conclusion and closure, all to ensure that NASA's Orion program achieves mission success. And these were the folks that I got to work with. When I finally got to meet them in person, it was really fantastic because I did the detail all virtually. And so these were the fantastic people that I got to work with. So let's bring the collective power of our workforce to have an impact on the biggest challenges and make mission success always happen in the present, not later. Thank you.
Growing up in Venezuela, my dad taught me to be kind, to listen, to treat others how I would like to be treated. His nurturing ways shaped me into being someone who deeply cares for others. As I graduated college, I wanted to work in a place that aligned with my values. I was lucky to land an internship at Kennedy Space Center and immediately fell in love with NASA's culture and their mission. One thing that stood out was how passionate my coworkers were about the contributions they had made to the space program and how connected they were to one another for working towards a common goal. After that summer, I knew that I wanted to work for NASA and be part of something that was bigger than me. As someone who craved to be of service, could it get any better than working for an agency whose motto was for the benefit of all? I was assigned to the mobile launcher element, and at the time, I was the youngest person in my team. Over time, I perhaps became the one with the most longevity. As people cycled on and off the project, I was determined to be part of the entire life cycle. Fast forward 8 years to the moment in the picture behind me. When SLS rolled out of the BAB, I was in my assignment center at JPL, on the opposite side of the country, shedding tears as I watched what had been the focus of my NASA career. What's special to me about this picture is not just this amazing rocket, the incredible mobile launcher structure, or these great people in front of it, but what it symbolizes. The dedication of a passionate workforce. A testament of what we can achieve when there's teamwork and collaboration. Equally important, this rocket is going to be an enabler. It will expand the boundaries for humanity. NASA has 5 core values, and we do an amazing job at safety, integrity, and excellence. My vision as a servant leader is for NASA, it's a workforce that focuses and embraces and recognizes the importance of the other 2 core values, teamwork and inclusion. At SELP, I learned that my personality trait is known as the advocate. So today, I want us all to become, like this rocket, enablers and lift each other up to achieve our goals. I invite you all to become servant leaders who tap into the passion of our workforce and foster teamwork, trust, and unity. Thank you.
My 6th grade science teacher in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, Mrs. Carzoli, applied for the Teacher in Space program. So our class was very invested in the Challenger mission. And I remember vividly sitting with my class with a big TV and a clunky wheeled-in metal TV stand watching the events of the day take place. It was a very traumatic day for us all. It had a very big impact on me. I had a very strong sense of responsibility to make sure that spaceflight was safe, even at 6th grade. And I brought that sense of responsibility with me to my career at NASA. My first assignment at Mission Control Moscow was during the Shuttle 3A mission, which actually Pam Melroy was the pilot for. She's not here today, but I was going to point that out. It was her first mission. Back in those days, the Russian flight control team would have to open a series of valves across the ISS stack to equalize the pressure so the shuttle crew could open hatches from the shuttle and work their way through the station. On ingress day, I noticed the Russians' plan for the opening the valves was incorrect, and the choreography of that valve opening would cause a pressure differential across one of their hatches that could harm their hatch and cause that hatch to be maybe unusable for the rest of the station's lifetime, and which would also be detrimental in an emergency situation if the crew needed to close those hatches during an emergency. So I was a young 20-something American female, and I had to go into a big room filled with Russian male specialists, some who had been in spaceflight for over 40 years and probably in the Soviet military before that, and look them in the face and say their valve plan was incorrect and that their hatch could possibly be harmed and they needed to fix it quickly because ingress was happening that day. So it was very scary, but I had to show them mathematically, systematically, and diplomatically what the issue was. And eventually they listened to me, and the ingress was successful. So throughout my career with international and commercial crew partners, we've always progressed as a team when we've listened to each other, knowing when to compromise, and using the experience of one team to make the next team even more successful. Regardless of whether you're new at the job, you come from a different background, if you're seeing something that seems incorrect, you have to stand up and ask questions about it. Your inputs could make a serious difference. As we all know, spaceflight is unforgiving, and we all need to keep our eyes on the crew and the vehicle safety. So as we move towards returning to the moon and pushing the boundaries of scientific exploration, the leaders of NASA should remember our hard lessons learned, understand the benefits with collaboration with commercial and international partners, and shoulder that responsibility for unencumbered communication to ensure mission success. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. K. Renee Horton, and I have worked for NASA for over 10 years. The hardest place to be is in a vulnerable place. The picture behind me is my first leadership program with NASA. I had to trust my cohort, who all except 2 of them were close to the age of my children. At the time, I was almost 40. The experience allowed each of them to find their voice and allowed me to be stretched. I still keep in touch with them, and I watch each of them grow and stretch into amazing people, mothers, fathers, engineers, and scientists. Fast forward to my cohort today. Each of them have witnessed my vulnerability, and times I didn't have my own voice. For NASA to be a place for each of us to thrive, we must speak up for those whose voices just aren't big enough to be heard. If we want NASA to continue to be the best and the greatness that it brings to humanity, we've got to be able to speak up when it's time to speak up. We have to practice inclusivity. We all need to practice inclusivity. We never know where the next wave of talent will be. You never know who you may run off, or you never know where the next solution was because you excluded them. When I look back at the picture, I think about the day we had to go skydiving, and I had to remove my hearing aids. And everyone on the plane was very concerned that, something was gonna go wrong. And so these guys all created their own sign language at the time to be able to communicate to me. I'm afraid of heights, so I saw no sign language because my eyes were closed when we barreled out. But when we landed, I realized right then that sometimes, even in your moment of vulnerability, your greatest moments occur. So I want to thank my cohort for protecting me when it was needed, for speaking up for me when you did. And I want to thank you all for being the people that you are and the amazing leaders that will change NASA. Thank you.
My name is Laura Kushner, and I want to talk to you today about using curiosity to find the why. My career was not something that I had planned. I never expected to end up here at NASA, and especially with aeronautics as my passion. I fell into the aero community at NASA Ames through an internship, where I asked to work on something unique to NASA rather than the astronomy project that they had assigned me. I got to work with senior technical leaders in aeronautics immediately, and they were fantastic teachers. Coming from my astronomy undergrad, I knew that I didn't know anything about aeronautics, and so did they. And being an outsider gave me a freedom to ask a lot of why questions. Why? Why this? Why that? Why do you do it that way? Why? As I've grown in my career, finding the why is something that I have found helpful time and time again, even as I've not been the outsider. It gets the team to focus back on the basics. It can help lend clarification to what we are doing, and occasionally spurs us to head into a new direction when we think about something again. My vision is to bring this open curiosity to the agency as a whole. I've been able to use my interest in everything to find the right questions to help answer some of the hard problems facing NASA, and I want to empower others to do the same. We can do this as an agency with a greater emphasis on multi-center programs and projects, led by a program or a project office rather than a center, by sending people off for more details to other centers or to other mission directorates where people can go and explore a new place, ask a bunch of questions, find the why of what works, and implement it back at home. I was fortunate to find this in my first internship, and I want to expand access to those kind of opportunities to everyone at NASA, not just our interns, not just our senior leaders, but throughout the entire range of the workforce. We're doing some of this, but it's not enough. I fear that if we aren't smart, this is something that could be neglected with blinders on schedule or not having enough people to fill our current jobs. If done right, the training potential will come back tenfold, resulting in an agency that values cross-training and experience just as much as credentials and center norms, where it doesn't matter which mission directorate you come from or which center you work for, whether you are a civil servant or a contractor. But your contribution is valued just as much whether you're an insider or an outsider, as I found at my first internship at Ames. Thank you.
Growing up, I was the youngest of 4 children. There was an 11-year gap between my oldest brother, Steve, and myself, and my father was in the Air Force and my mom was a nurse. Being in the Air Force, my dad would frequently get station changes that would occur every 3 or 4 years. So when my dad got a new duty station, it was kind of usual for him to go ahead and get things set up and get the house settled, and for my mom to stay behind and kind of watch over the 4 of us kids and be sure everything was okay till school was over, and then she would send us on. We'd all go together and join my father. When I was 6 years old, I remember being in the driveway. When I was 6 years old, my dad had a station change from Biloxi, Mississippi to Sacramento, California. And during that time, I remember being in the driveway with the whole family waving goodbye to my dad, and his window being rolled down, and his truck just busting at the seams with so much stuff he could barely carry it, and him pulling out and a tear coming to his eye. And I remember thinking that, my dad wasn't a particularly emotional man, but on that cool spring morning, I remember a tear falling from his eye as he pulled out of the driveway. With the window down, waving goodbye, I also remember thinking it wasn't usual for my dad to behave that way or to be that emotional. A couple of days later, I was in the backyard. I was playing with my Tonka trucks, and my brother came out to check on me. After a little chit-chat, I remember, asking, why was Dad crying when he left? This is when my oldest brother knelt down in my construction site and changed my life dramatically. He told me Mom and Dad had decided to separate, and that we would be staying in Ocean Springs. That was when my tear came. In coping with my grief, and by God's grace, I began to form closer relationships with those people in my life around me, mainly at school and close family. But something happened during that getting closer to people. I found connectedness to be nourishment for my soul. I also found myself willing and wanting to help others to speak up for themselves because I understood them and I was connected to them. As the years went by, I noticed that people gravitated toward me for counseling, advice, arbitration, and such. And my observations from my school-age years were that when you truly connect with people, trust is extremely high and people are confident you have good intention. And that makes dialogue much richer. Because of this connectedness, it's a core value of mine that greatly influences my leadership style, and I find it to be one of my greatest strengths. I find that, like I said, when people are connected and trust is high, dialogue and sharing of information are much greater, and there's more openness and cooperation. And because of all the hard and bold things we do at NASA, I want to use my leadership opportunities, and I challenge all of you as well to use your leadership opportunities to build a NASA of connected people. Won't you come and join me on this journey? Thank you.
Have you ever wondered what your purpose on this planet is? I sure have. We all live on this beautiful speck of dust. We all grew up in one of those little points of light. I vividly remember as a kid being in my basement and my very German grandmother Linda teaching me math. I always wanted to make her proud. For years, NASA's vision has been to discover and expand the knowledge for the benefit of humanity. I believe it is my duty to share knowledge. From a young age, knowledge and curiosity have guided me, and that curiosity has stayed with me. When I hear somebody talk about their NASA job, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Man, that's cool. I want to do that. Curiosity teaches us about the world and the universe. Curiosity expands our knowledge. Growing my knowledge and sharing that with my colleagues, my friends, and my family is an innate part of me as a leader. We must continue to explore, expand our collective knowledge at this agency, and make it discoverable. Imagine you are a new NASA flight controller. You open your web browser go to wiki.nasa.gov and type in Gateway Portable Computer. 1,981 results are returned in 0.89 seconds. Not 2 weeks digging through SharePoint sites or trolling through file shares or going over to Building 4 North and asking Hassam what the GPC is. One website, 0.89 seconds. I want you to help share our knowledge and make it discoverable for each other and the world. Thanks, Grandma. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Today we're hearing from the amazing SELP cohort, all the amazing NASA centers, diverse best of all. I'm humbled to be included in this group. Excellent folks presenting to you, the existing NASA leaders, as those of us who will be the leadership of the future, we hope. I'm Tim Roberts, the JPLer whose SELP assignment was to the Kennedy Space Center. And that's where I'm going to start my story, at the Cape. Before the world saw the SLS rocket that Claudia and Jesse made so possible for me during her presentation, I took an elevator to the top of the VAB, walked up to the very top of the launch tower, walked down several flights of stairs, got to the crew access arm, bunny suited up, and 325 feet above the ground, I followed the open gangway out to the White Room, embracing the Orion capsule. The same precarious path that every Apollo Skylab and Space Shuttle astronaut had walked. I experienced a profound sense of imposter syndrome, an almost hallucinatory sense that I couldn't be here. It was impossible to be in that same place. This child watching Apollo land on TV, anything was possible. To that kid, anything was possible. I had no barrier to being an astronaut myself. The spark that guided me should hold true for everyone. Dreams have no skin color or language. I reject the societal biases that define one's opportunity. I ask your permission to help us get smarter through accelerated workforce diversity. If we preach the right sermon, any layman can find a pew in the holy house of aerospace. We already embody the tools of versification. If NASA folks don't understand something or some process, they ask for help. Odds are I don't know the answer either. But we always find somebody who does. Diverse workforces allow us to be educated with new, exciting perspectives. And by the way, this is all on-the-job training, right? So we don't show up knowing what we're doing. SELP helped me to realize this is my dream job. It's called empowerment, making all of us stronger, faster, better people. Empowerment is more than social diversity. It includes leadership giving you the space to be better. My teams know our purpose: to boldly expand the frontiers that benefit the quality of life on Earth. To boldly expand the frontiers that benefit the quality of life on Earth for everyone. We will be greater in the doing. That's my dream. It's why this 6-year-old kid sought to be here. Thank you.
I was born and raised in Utah, and this image of Monument Valley has a profound impact on me. This is because it's an ecosystem that has adapted to a harsh environment, and every living thing depends on each other. These towering buttes are the reason why this picture was taken. I don't think it would be as beautiful if it didn't have the environment or the ecosystem surrounding it. I equate these towering buttes as things at NASA that get visibility, that get the public excited, like Artemis, James Webb, and Perseverance. And the ecosystem surrounding it is us as individuals feeding into our missions, into the ecosystem. I found through my experience at NASA that an individual can have a profound impact and powerful impact on our mission and our direction. We all come from different backgrounds with different experiences. We respond to our goals differently. We communicate in different ways. This can be a challenge as leaders. But just like this picture, we need to capture it all. We can do that by tailoring our leadership to the individual. So just like we tailor our requirements to unique missions, we can recognize how each other work, each other's skills, each other's readiness levels. Our mission is set by our country, our leaders, our mission directorates, but especially the people who get excited by what we do in the public. So it's how we act as a team, as individuals building this team, that helps us succeed. And we can do that even better in the future by playing to each other's differences. Just like everything here, we strive to survive. And each living thing has earned its place in the sand, and everybody here has done it. So I challenge us as leaders to understand relationship behavior so that we can bring the human back into the workplace. And we can continue to inspire and capture the imagination that the public sees in us and gets excited by, because that excites us and it excites me. Thank you.
We all remember February 1st, 2003, when we lost Columbia. I was 6 months pregnant with my first child, Amy, whose picture you see here. For 3 days after the accident, my husband and I discussed whether or not I should withdraw my application from the astronaut corps. It was an extremely emotional discussion. At the end of those 3 days, we both decided to keep my hat in it and continue my application. That's how strongly I believe in our work and the drive to want more. This is how important our work is to me. I'm calling on everyone to continue to be people of courage and lean forward to take on the challenges of the future. We're still using Apollo technology. This technology has given us items that we use in everyday life, cell phones, advanced materials. But what we need to do is to continue to take on the most dramatic work to propel us through the 21st century and beyond. To look beyond today's capabilities. Our work at NASA is about pushing boundaries. I want to be part of that team, leading the charge to take on the hardest risks as the agency progresses. In order to do this, as leaders, we must embrace new ways of doing work. While on my assignment at Ames, I jumped into model-based system engineering in the leadership team and gained an exciting insight into a piece of the agency's digital transformation. I believe that model-based engineering and model-based system engineering are just parts of what is required for us to lead the future of technology development. This requires courage and a willingness to adapt and embrace new tools that will allow us to tackle the exciting challenges that we face. I'm ready. We're ready. So you may be wondering, excuse me. You may be wondering what happened to my application. I became a mom of 2 very wonderful children. Excuse me. I didn't become an astronaut, but I still remain very committed to NASA and its mission. Thank you for this incredible opportunity.
In Proctor, British Columbia, there is a bakery. And the bakery was the heart of the community. But in 2015, the owner retired, and by 2018, that bakery had essentially fallen into disrepair and closed. People in the community lost connectivity. And the leaders of the community were so worried that the entire town of Proctor would dissolve that they said, we must rebuild that bakery. They sat down, had this discernment. The bakery was necessary, not for pastry, but for the environment that it created, for the sense of community that it built. And by 2020, they had rebuilt the bakery and they sent the world a message. Every village needs a kitchen. I'm George Williams from NASA Glenn, from NASA. And this incorporates a core value of mine, empowered accompaniment. It's a phrase that's borrowed, but it's part of a call to renewal. It's an expectation that leaders create an environment, that they enable a team characterized by support, by appreciation, by encounter. And the leaders are expected to enable their members to shine. 20 years as a researcher, I've seen what happens when this kitchen is closed in a research environment. It becomes about my data, my project, my plan, my vision. And the energy goes into entropy. It becomes stress. And if there is success, it's a success of wearing people out with no vision to go forward. And people are relieved that it's over. But I've also seen what happens when this accompaniment is present. The team pulls together, the team excels, the team does the impossible. An example is our team solved a problem that is enabling Gateway to fly. Co-manifest vehicle could not go to the moon without this. And it filled us with pride. But it did more. The success said, what next? What more can we do? This is where we took pride. As part of SELP, I've taken a new position as a manager, and I see what it can do there. We see people come to meetings, my leads come, and they're full of stress. My CSO, my chief engineer, my SMA, they're all concerned, they're all afraid. And I invite them into my imagination. Scares them more. but we create a discussion that takes them out of blame and says, let's work together to solve this. We're going to celebrate a team. Tell me. And we've solved. We've moved on. We've re-energized. Yesterday, Moses Adaku told us, when young leaders fail, celebrate them. Make sure they learn something, but celebrate them. SELP testifies to that. It testifies to that in our cohort because we have all failed a little. I failed some significantly, but it's always, hey, George, we're with you. It's okay. You're getting better. And I testify to this as well. It's not the boss. The leader says it's okay, but it's not okay unless the team says it's okay. The team has to be willing to accept failure in leadership more than the boss and say, it's okay. We're with you. You're getting better. It's a community that has a kitchen, a community that has a bakery. Proctor is in the middle of nowhere, but it's sending the world a message that pulling together creates a wondrous environment. NASA is present to everyone, and we celebrate that same message. So my vision is for every team, whether it's a simple group of researchers or the agency, to have this sense of accompaniment that makes sure there is a kitchen. Every team has a kitchen.